Hey there, this is Dave Newton from the Mighty Angels. And you're listening to the New Wave podcast.
Welcome to a special episode of the New Wave Music Podcast. I'm T-Bone. Steve, for a change, is on assignment. It's been a while, so we're going to do another new music spotlight. Today, we're talking about Hardwicke Circus, and with us, we have the lead singer and guitarist, Jonny Foster, as well as their manager, Dave Robinson. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hey, great to be here.
T-Bone. Thank you.
You betcha. Hey, so let's start off with you, Jonny. First of all, tell us who's in the band and what role they play.
So I'm the singer in the group, and my brother, the middle child, Tom Foster, he plays the drums and sings also. And then we've got Lewis Bewley-Taylor on the keyboards. We've got Joe Hurst on the bass guitar, and we've got Jack Pierce on all the saxophones. And we're from a place called Carlisle, which is the most northern tip of England. We're kind of caught in the middle. It's no man's land between England and Scotland, and that's very much the identity of the band. We've known each other for forever, and we're taking it around the world together.
I was going to ask that. You've known each other for years, decades.
Well, being Tom's brother, it's kind of been inescapable. which has been a blessing in many areas and a curse in others. But a rare thing about us is we've only ever really played with each other. We haven't been in other bands. We haven't ventured off and had other projects. We've very much thrown all of our eggs into this basket, and I think we've been very lucky to have that.
What's the story behind the name Hardwicke Circus? How did you come up with that? Well,
that's a really good question, because we found, as being from Carlisle, whenever we've went around England, we've said, we're from a place called Carlisle, and people look at you and say, well, where the fuck is that? So we thought, when we have a band, we got to geographically locate ourselves. And if you come into Carlisle, the first roundabout you hit, and the last roundabout you hit when you leave, inevitably, is a place called Hardwicke Circus. And it's very funny because people in Carlisle look at us and say, well, why the hell have you called yourself Hardwicke Circus? That's a terrible name. But then we leave Carlisle and we go around the country and people say, well, that's kind of interesting. I kind of understand that. So that's why we're called Hardwicke Circus.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's where you're coming and where you're going. That's right. So it's that turnabout. Absolutely. So you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but let's go into a little bit more deeper. How did the band form? It often seems like there's an advertisement asking for musicians. Was that the case here, or did everything come together in a different way? I know you say you knew each other for the longest time, but is that just how it was formed?
Well, me and Tom, as brothers, were always we were that annoying family in the neighborhood that would make a racket in the attic. And we'd be playing all these covers of our favorite bands from a very young age, kind of 9 and 10. Tom got a drum kit out of there was a store called Argos, and they'd have these 5,000 page catalogs where you could buy every item, be it of kitchen appliance, musical instrument, under the sun. And he got one of these little drum kits for Christmas from when he was 8 or 9. And so from that point, we made a lot of racket. We learned all of our favorite songs as kids. And then going through school, we continued playing at all the musical evenings and such. And from that point, we became very good at poaching all the good musicians. And we've been together ever since.
So let's talk about the new album, Fly the Flag. One of my favorite tracks is Night Train to London.
Everybody's always gotta go somewhere. Give me all your money and I'll take you there. I see a dead man walking when I find my way on the night train to London. Ta wah wah. Alive, alive. Is there anybody alive?
Now, clearly to me, but correct me if I'm wrong, this is a tribute to Madness and their song Night Boat to Cairo. Am I right on that?
Well, yeah, you wouldn't be wrong. It's clearly got a nod to that. And it's as much about, the idea of being from Carlisle. People always say, like, do you never want to leave and move to Manchester or move to London? And we've always stayed in the north. We feel that that's a huge part of what the band is, of what it's about, and a huge source of inspiration. And the lyric on that track, which Tom, my brother, the drummer, wrote, he says, it's 4 a.m. in the morning, steam trumpets reach Carlisle, alive, alive, is there anybody alive? And it's all about him trying to get out of Carlisle, but at the end of the day, he really doesn't want to get out on that night train to London. And it's his kind of conflicting nature of being from a small town. And it's a great track, and you'll see that Suggs is credited on that track, and Mike Barson. So it's definitely a nod to it. But if you listen to our records and a lot of our music, you'll see that, we take inspiration from a lot of different places, and we're not afraid to shy away from our influences. We want to harness them and beg, borrow, and steal as much as we possibly can. And that track is a perfect example of that. And people can make that connection, and that's great. And we're seeing that at gigs, and it's definitely up there as one of the strong tracks.
Well, we can definitely call it a tribute, and that's one of the reasons I loved it so much, because I'm a huge Madness fan. So yeah, I thought that was just a perfect little, like I say, tribute to them.
Tom tells a story about how he wrote it. He was on the train, and I always tell this story at gigs. We're an independent band, we got to keep run this ship very tightly. So we hate paying for train tickets. And Tom will often be on the train going to London, and he'll see the conductor in the distance, And what he usually does is he makes a dash for the disabled toilet just to hide in there for an hour or so. So he's sat in there, and the train conductor's found him, and he's banging on the door saying, "Come on, man, I need to see your train ticket. What's happening?" And Tom's saying, "I'm not coming out." So he burrows himself away. He burrows himself away in the loo and writes this lyric. And that's the story of the Night Train to London.
Oh, that's great. That's great. This album is horns heavy, which I absolutely love. Horns, especially the saxophone, were a staple of 80s music, which was what made me so excited to do an episode with you guys. Was using them so extensively the plan all along as a band?
Well, we've got one saxophone player, and he plays some incredible parts that kind of weave in as part of the instrumentation.
Yes.
But when we recorded this album, we realized songs like Bang My Head.
Around here, the rain won't be stopping for me. I can stamp my feet, raise my fists, but I bang my head to the rhythm of life.
Or Rejection is Better Than Regret.
Rejection is better than regret, my love. I guess that's why you're my ex. You're so sweet and lovely though, but I don't like the way you look with him.
They were a nod to that Philadelphia or Motown area. And so we called in our friend, a guy called Snake Davis, who you might have heard of him. He's one of the great horn players, sax players in England. And he came in and he arranged some horns alongside a guy called Terry Edwards, who plays some of the most kind of mind-bending, rebel-rousing saxophone you've ever heard on some of the songs. And that's very exciting for us. And we also invited a guy called Earl Slick, a guitar player, Slick,
yeah.
who played with David Bowie and John Lennon. And
New
he came in New York Dolls, of course, and he played on the last track on the album, a song called No More Dogging.
No more dogging, fool around with you. I'm gonna let you out, baby, that's what I gotta do.
Which is an old blues track by a guy called Roscoe Gordon. Again, that was a nod to our favorite kind of music. So yes, there's lots of horns on the album, but the songs weren't written to with horns in mind. We just wrote songs about the simplest of ideas, our daily lives. And it just so happens that we were very lucky to have these people to call on and add their music to them.
Right. Well, and I'm glad it did work out for you, because like I say, that's one of the highlights of the album is all the horns. I think they just fit in perfectly with the songs. So every day I find the luck.
Every day I find the luck in the morning. Seconds keep on falling, a clock without a warning. Every day I find the luck.
And I'm not over till it's over.
It's not over till I never not want to do this again. It's not over till it's over. It's my nature.
Just a few of my favorite songs on the album. And Steve wanted to say that he hasn't stopped listening to Can You Hear Me Now?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Let me know where you go. Are you homebound? Can you hear me now?
If you could choose just one song from the album as a favorite, what would it be?
Oh, it's a very hard question to answer. I think I really like Bang My Head. I like Can You Hear Me Now? I really like No More Dogging. I just think that's got a great groove about it. And musically, it's more of a nod to where we are on a live show. But there's definitely some of my favorites. But It's Not Over Till It's Over. I think there's a lot to be had from that song.
Great song. Great song. So you kind of mentioned it a moment ago. I wanted to ask you, so you don't necessarily write all the songs. I mean, are you the main songwriter, or is it more of a collaborative effect with the band?
Well, we're all songwriters, and Fly the Flag, this second studio album, it sets all the band up as songwriters. So, I write, Tom writes, Lewis writes, his track is True Love and Near Misses.
True love, what are the abysses? Not all those who wander here have lost. True love, what are the abysses? Not all those who wander here have lost.
And also Joe and Jack, the other band members, are all starting to contribute in the writing area. Yeah, so we're all involved in that aspect, and I think that's what makes it unique. We're not shying away or veering to one style or to one idea of what we are. We're just trying to write good songs, to play good music, and not get too theatrical about it.
Nice. Well, so now let's change the subject just a touch here. For those that the name Dave Robinson seems familiar. Now, Dave, you are the co-founder of Stiff Records and signed up The Damned, Tracy Ullman, Christy McCall, The Pogues, and Madness, as well as managing Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, Dave Edmonds, and Ian Dury before signing them to Stiff. Dave, how did you get involved with Hardwicke Circus?
My son, Milo, music fan and photographer, was wandering around the main street of Camden Town, very musical part of London. And he knew Camden Town intimately because he was taking pictures of bands and going to see music. He's on his way to get some fish and chips, a very English meal. And there's one particularly very good one in Camden Town. So he was going there and he heard music coming from a pub that he knew didn't have any music, that normally had no music coming out. So intrigued, in he went, thought there might be a photo opportunity, and saw this young band playing in the center of the floor. There was no stage, center of the floor, people drinking around them, and was intrigued, took some pictures and chatted to them afterwards, and found out that they'd come that day to London and had actually walked around many pubs trying to convince the landlords to put them on, to let them play, and had convinced a lady at this particular pub, Irish lady inevitably, who said, yeah, why not? So that was he thought they were very good. And it occurred to him that he'd like to get into management. It's something he's been thinking of for a while. So he thought, I'll get the old man in to see if he can kind of influence them in this area. And the following night, he learned they were playing at a very famous Camden Town pub called the Dublin Castle, where Madness started from. And so he invited me down. I met Johnny's dad, who was doing the driving. And they were very get-together young guys with I thought, 3 or 4 decent songs. And good. I mean, I hear and see a lot of bands that I would not spend the evening listening to. One song, half a song might be enough. So before I knew it, my son had rode me into the package a bit. He was talking to the band about managing them and was telling me that I wouldn't have to do anything, that I would just be a back stage consultant. So we spoke to the group and their parents. They're younger at this point, and decided to have a go. It's a very different record business now than it was, and so it's a lot harder, and it's you have to be fairly tough to do it. But they showed that by convincing Irish landlords to put them on in their pub. It's a very hard thing to do.
So have you kept up working with other bands, or is Hardwicke Circus your focus now?
Yes, Hardwicke Circus are it at the moment, yeah. No, people ask me, would I take on other stuff? But my interest really is in getting to where we are now with Hardwicke Circus and seeing where we can progress to, because the next 2 years will probably be very urgent years. The pandemic, we were set up in 1920, showing my age, and we were set up when South by Southwest we were off to. We had a lot of people interested, and we had a lot of festivals, a lot of gigs in 2020, cancelled a week pretty much before the show. And we had gone to a lot of effort, the band had gone to a lot of effort to raise the finance necessary to get to Austin for a week. And we lost a lot of that. But a lot of other people had the same problem. We're working back now. So essentially, our efforts are good. It's good to have the time, and it's good to have this year where we're playing a lot of places. We're heading to Europe very shortly, to the Czech Republic, to do a 3-week tour, and we'll hopefully go to Poland and maybe a couple of other places. So it's starting to work, and it hasn't hurt that the band have written some, great new songs. Even since Fly the Flag, we're working on the next one, by and large, which will be next year's effort. So, we've had a really good reaction, particularly from people in the States to the record, who like the horns and things.
So now you also produced their most recent album, Fly the Flag. Dave, what don't you do?
Well, there are a few things. No, that was the boys. The boys really. I really did not want to do it, but the boys seemed to have some faith in my efforts. So that was very encouraging, and it turned out very well because we know each other well and we get along, and so. It evolved in the studio, this particular album. The very first album was written prior to the studio. This one was written in or around the studio, on the recording days.
So, Jonny, it looks like, or Paul McCartney requested a slot for you guys at Glastonbury. That must have been very flattering. Tell us what that meant to you and the band.
That was a huge moment. I was on the radio in England not long ago, and they asked me, where were you when you found out? And I told them I was underneath our old van welding a wheel arch. And I got this email. And it said, you are on the Rabbit Hole stage, the final band of Glastonbury 2022, 3:30 a.m. in the morning. And, and you were given it through Paul McCartney. So it was a huge moment. And there's been a great effect from it. And it's mind blowing to even be in the same sentence as Paul McCartney, as you can imagine.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you on that. Now, you guys mentioned, or Dave, you just mentioned that you guys have dates are upcoming in the UK and you, as you mentioned, the Czech Republic. Now, I first got to ask, do you guys have a following in the Czech Republic?
Well, it seems so. The Czech Republic, very musical country. I've been researching it since. Somebody reached out to us and said, "Would we want to go?" And I said, "Well, yes. How can we achieve that?" The finance was not terrible. It's not huge, but it's not terrible and enough to do it. And then the next stage was that the tour had sold out. And they have, the Czech Republic seemingly have 200 to 300 kind of venues with lights and PA. And they're used to having bands on tour, and they like UK groups. So there's a following for each of the clubs. And they've liked the music of the band. And now we're in the sold out Czech Republic tour. So it's exciting. Very exciting.
Wow, that is fantastic. Well, it kind of just leads up to a question that I have, and that is, any chance we'll see Hardwicke Circus here in the States?
Well, I'm hoping the next year. We're talking to the various bodies that be. It's a fairly difficult thing, work-wise, work permit-wise, to get into America. You've got to have an exchange, and there's got to be people sponsoring you. But we're working on that because we'd like to play, and the interest to this album has been particularly good to give you the music would fit. A lot of the American bands that have influenced them, the music is a good fit, I would think, and it would be interesting to take them around America.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And Jonny, how have audiences been responding to the new material?
Really been amazing how the album's only been out a month or two, and already at gigs people are singing back songs to all the deepest cuts, to all the songs on the album. At festivals, at gigs all over England, people have learned the words so quickly. And that's just so amazing for us, doing this independently, to see that an album we've put out on our own label, which is called Alternative Facts Records, that it's resonating. Which I'm sure as an American that will resonate on some level, but it's been amazing hearing it out. And obviously, as Dave says, these songs were kind of written and recorded whilst in the studio. There was no time before the album to go and test them out live. So it's been a complete kind of reverse procedure for us. We recorded them and now we're only taking them out, and now they're finding the feet. Now the songs are taken on new kind of sounds and new directions live, and we're really enjoying that. In fact, people are saying, they've seen us a couple times in a month, and they're saying, well, you've changed this part of the song, or you've changed that lyric, or you've changed that section, or you've moved on. And that's really great that people are listening to the music and it's resonating.
You mentioned it kind of briefly just a moment ago, but new material. You recently released a new song, "The Color in Everything."
You are
What can you tell us about this single?
Well, there's a good arc to this song, actually. The song was written, it was my girlfriend's birthday, and we'd got past the point of doing all the presents and such, and I thought I'll write her a little poem. So I end up scribbling this little poem down on a birthday card, and I give it to her for her birthday. And I think, well, that's quite good, maybe I should put some music to it. And so I write some music, and this song becomes "The Color in Everything," which is on the new album. But the latest installment is that I've just got dumped, so the song can become whatever you want it to be now.
Granted, the new album just came out a month or so ago, but we are looking down the line for the next album.
Yes, we are.
The band are writing a lot, and people. It started off with Jonny, the writer. Then Jonny and Tom, separate writings and occasionally together. Lewis the keyboard player, is starting to write. I'm a big fan of everybody writing. Madness, when they started, had just two writers, and I got everybody writing eventually. I think songwriting is what it's about, really. signed to stiff people who could write songs. And so the band, it was important to me that they were all keen to do that. So we expect the next album to have 5 writers, all vying to get the material onto it. And I think that's the kind of competition that you like. I think it's really helpful, keeps the band ethos together. And as the band progress live around the country and into Europe and whatever, the writing, mirrors this. They're very socially conscious, the band. They're very coming from Carlisle and a small town, as you've discussed with Jonny, means that everybody is very aware of where we are and what we're doing. So I expect the Czech Republic will toss up a few, and so we're thinking that we're working on the next 3 albums as we speak.
Oh wow!
Our plan is there is the live prison record of Her Majesty's Pleasure. That's an interesting one, but it is live version of the first and some of the second album. So we're working on the material, and it gets better as you put it down. Recording it is what it's about, So it's a procedure that the band are going through, and I think working very well.
Jonny, did you want to add anything to that?
No, absolutely. Playing live for us informs a lot of the music. That's what inspires us to be in a band, is getting out there, performing the songs. Dave touched on the prisons. Going into jails was such a rewarding experience for us. It wasn't just us having a jolly going in and saying we've played some prisons. It was us having a connection with the inmates, and we'd play our songs about adversity in the outside world. And as soon as we brought them into the jails, usually in a prison chapel, they resonated in a new way. The inmates were able to connect their own experiences to our songs and to our words. And that's really what it's all about. And of course, as you can imagine, from that really made us want to drive on, do more jails, do more gigs, and write more songs.
Now, Steve mentioned to me that since he first heard the album Fly the Flag, he became a fan of the band. And this question is very important to him. He wanted me to ask, he's curious who your influences are that shaped the sound of the band.
Well, it's a great question. And as a band of 5 writers, we come from a lot of different angles, many different roads. And, I'm listening to a lot of Creedence Clearwater Revival at the moment, and the band, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen. Great songwriters is what I'm into. Tom, for example, he's into huge Bobcat. Lewis is into slightly different, more synth kind of avant-garde stuff. Joe, our bass player, again into a lot of the blues stuff, like we are, a lot of Motown stuff, a lot of James Jamerson stuff. And Jack comes from that kind of Junior Walker side of the world. So it's all that great live raucous music that turns us on. And we want that in our songs.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, you can hear it in the songs. Absolutely. There is a energy and an excitement in the songs on this album.
Yeah, we wanted to capture that. There's too many records nowadays sound like they've been, made in a laboratory, or and they're too perfect. Like, people nowadays like perfect things, but you don't. There's no. I've never understood when something's too sanitized, why you'd want to be seen with that, and so we're kind of anti-sanitization when it comes to recording. It wants to be live, hard hitting, and kick you between the teeth.
Right. So finally, after hearing your latest album, I jumped into your first album, The Borderland, and I really enjoyed it, especially tracks like Nowhere Left to Run.
You got nowhere left to run. Got nobody, got nowhere to run. You got nowhere left to run. Got nobody, got nowhere to run.
And Walking on Broken Glass.
Walking on broken glass, walking, oh, there must be more to life than this. Walking on broken glass.
However, the track that really stuck out to me was the Ballad of the Gypsy King.
The Ballad Gypsy King. The ballad of the Gypsy King.
What can you tell us about the Gypsy King?
So you'll be aware of Tyson Fury, the great heavyweight boxer, and he comes from a place called Morecambe, which is near us. It's about an hour south of Carlisle, and it's amazing that he's the heavyweight champ of the world, and instead of going to live off in the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas or Miami or wherever else, he's staying in this really provincial northern seaside town. And there was a program on the television about his story, about his overcoming his addiction, his drug addiction, his depression. And it was inspiring so much that we wrote a song about him. And we recorded the song for the Borderland. But I was dying. I was desperate for Tyson Fury to hear this song. I thought he would love this. This is right up his street. It name checks all of his great achievements. And I realized during lockdown #1 in England, that at 6 a.m. every morning, he'd post a video of himself running up and down Morecambe Bay. And I thought, well, this would be a brilliant idea. How about I hijack his morning run, and I'll play him the song. So before you know it, it's like 5 a.m. I've got up, I've put my running shorts on, and I drive to Morecambe. And I park out on the bay. I've got this song that we've recorded called The Ballad of the Gypsy King ready to play on my phone. And the next thing I know, Tyson Fury's there running in the distance. So I say, well, it's now or never. And I get out the car, I chase him down the pier, and I catch him up and I say, look, Tyson, I know you're a very busy man and you probably hate this kind of thing, but I've written a song about your journey. Do you have a moment? Noble cause, he'll love it, I'm thinking. Anyways, he kind of pauses and looks down at me, and I'm this very lanky ginger kid with an odd accent, and he looks down at me and he pauses, and I think, man, I'm in, he's going to love it. Anyways, he kind of looks at me very sternly and says, what the fuck do you want? And then he runs off into the distance. Here I am left in my running shorts at 6 a.m. About a month later, in the red top papers, which the red top papers are all the tabloid papers in England, like The Sun, the Daily Mirror, etc.
Yeah.
There was a story that said, Tyson Fury moves house due to stalkers. I'm connected. I feel connected to Tyson Fury on some level.
Look what you've done.
And look what I've done. So there we are. That's the Ballad of the Gypsy King. And
nice.
That's on the Borderland.
Great. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. Fly the Flag is an outstanding album, and both that Steve and I would recommend it to everyone who listens to the podcast. Jonny, or Dave, where are the best places our listeners can find the band's work, as well as more information on Hardwicke Circus?
It's our website is hardwickecircus.tv, which lists all of our music and links to all of our other sites like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of which is just /Hardwicke Circus. And all of our information is on there. And, we encourage people to listen, but also get in touch, get on the contact thing. Tell us what you think. Send us your favorite tracks. We want to get people involved in the US. And we feel that's really important. David,
did you have anything to add to that?
Well, don't forget the E at the end of Hardwicke. That's very important.
Vital.
That's right. That's right. Well, guys, again, Jonny and Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. We wish you the best of luck with this album and your upcoming work. And again, we hope we'll see you in the States soon.
Our pleasure. Great to talk.
T-Bone. Yeah. Thanks, you very much.
Well, thank you, T-Bone. That was a fantastic interview. I'm grateful that you introduced not only myself, but our listeners to Hardwicke Circus. I think that band has a bright future ahead of them. And if you guys like the segments we do, the New Artist Spotlight, I hope we do more of them in the future. If there's a band or artist that you feel we should do on our next one, shoot us an email, newwavemusicpodcast@yahoo.com. Don't forget, you can always follow us on any of our social media platforms. Look up New Wave Music Podcast. Also like and subscribe New Wave Music Podcast on your podcast platform of choice. By subscribing, it really helps us out. And you'll never miss an episode of the podcast. And that's going to do it for this episode of the New Wave Music Podcast. We'll be back with our next review episode featuring the newest albums from Public Image Limited and Glenn Matlock. We hope you join us.